welcome back to the Scoop here on the VET S.O.S channel. Guess what? You don't have to drown in the sea of transition. You grab that VET S.O.S lifeline. We here to help. And today, sitting on the stoop from across the pond, we're gonna get the scoop with my man Jay Allen. And I wanna share a little, like, we was talking behind the scenes for a while. I was giving Jay a little backstory because this is the first time that we've met, everybody. This is the first time that y'all gonna meet Jay. But I guarantee you, after this conversation, this won't be the last time, right? Because he has other stuff in the pipe that he's gonna come back to the scoop and we're gonna talk on it. But let me share a little something about Jay. I'm gonna give y'all a little scoop about Jay, and he's gonna come on and fill in the gaps. So Jay, he's the author of the hard-hitting book that we're gonna talk about today, everybody. I said, look, check it out right here. We're gonna dive into this deep, shallow, in between. But this book was put together in 2015, and we 2025, and we still talking about it because it's still relevant today. It's called The Battlefield to the Boardrooms, a tactical field guide that bridge the world of military leadership and corporate execution. From boots on the ground to the suits in the C-suite, Jay knows how to build, scale, and command. Jay is a decorated veteran. I'm going to let y'all tell y'all, he's going to tell y'all what type of veteran he is, but he's a decorated veteran, okay? He's a dynamic keynote speaker. He's a corporate strategist and battle-tested business coach who helped leaders translate their service mindset into six-figure success. But wait, there's more. Whether you're just starting your post-service journey or already making those executive decisions, this episode will give you the tools that you need, the mindset to grow, and the playbook to win. Let's give a warm welcome here on the scoop for the mission ready, Jay Allen. Jay, welcome to the scoop, my man. How you doing today? And let's start off by telling them where you tuning in from. Let's start with there. What's the scoop on you, Jay?
Brother, thank you so much for such an incredible introduction. I'm delighted to be here and sharing this formidable story with you. I'm based in the northwest of England, in Cheshire, over the other side of the pond. It's 9 p.m. in the evening, and we're just getting started. So I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Hey, and so I know everybody like, man, Kings, how did y'all put that? So shout out to the Who You Know Network. I tell you, Sean Welch, he's the one of the best producers out there because he's reaching out to these right here, these authors. He's like, hey, we got this new show called The Scoop. We want you to come on because we see what you're doing out there, but we want our community to know more about you. So he sent the book to me. I said, Battlefield to Boardroom? I said, and I started to read Jay's stuff. I was like, wow, that was the same thing I was experiencing, but Jay's across, he's on the other side of the pond. So I was like, yeah, he definitely got to come. We have to sit down on the stoop. So Jay, I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, right? So when I was younger, I used to sit on the stoop with me and my buddies, and we used to talk about like cars. We used to talk about girls. We used to talk about, basketball, football. We used to get a scoop on those stuff. So I like, man, that would be an awesome show name, right? The Scoop, to kind of get the insight. The insight. So let's start off on, you gave us a little bit the scoop of where you're at right now, but how did you get there? You said that you are in the UK and you served. Where did you serve at, and how was that journey to start off? And then we're gonna dive into the book because it's the buildup, it's the suspense. Because once y'all go, it's 10 strategies right here. We're gonna hover over. Like I said, we're gonna go deep. We're gonna go shallow. We're gonna go mid. We got the scuba gear for everybody. Don't worry. We're gonna change out the tanks every now and again, but it's gonna be great. So Jay, share a little bit inside with the audience so they know who you are.
Sure, thank you. So I don't come from a military family. I didn't come from a family where my dad and my brothers and my uncles and everything served. I don't come from that type of family at all. My mum worked in local government. My dad had his own business. I'm the eldest of 4 sons. And I went through school and I went through college with no interest or no interest in the military whatsoever. I'd never even thought about it. I know there were people in my class at school and at college that, you know, when I grow up, I'm going to join the army, like my dad and my uncle and my brothers. And I just went, that's nice. I'm going to go to college. I want to carry on. So I finished my college and I qualified in psychiatry. I wanted to be able to work predominantly with kids that had come into the childcare system, to be able to make sure that they weren't mentally scarred by whatever had led them there, and it wasn't going to help define who they were for the rest of their life. So initially I qualified as a psychiatrist. And then what I subsequently found was that all of my education told me all about psychiatry. When I got a job straight after I qualified, I quickly realized that the social services do this bit, and the probation service do that bit, and the police service do that bit. And I said, well, I'm a newly qualified psychiatrist. What do I do? And they said, well, you sit in a dark corner and write reports. And I went, I didn't spend 4 years at universities to sit and write reports. I want to change the world. So I was getting really disillusioned with what I qualified in and the job that I was going to be doing. At the same time as the British Army had just come back from the Falklands War, I'm starting to show my age now, come back from the Falklands, and shall we just say there were some natural vacancies that had been created. And as a result, there was a recruitment drive, and they were coming through, and they ended up in our university. They said they were looking for new recruits. And then something struck me. They said, and if you were to sign for a minimum of 5 years, we'll pay for your education. And I was like, I looked at how much money I owed, and I thought, well, 5 years isn't a long time. Sign me up. And before you know it, I was signing on the dotted line. I'll do 5 years for, in those days, Queen and Country. And at least my university degree's paid. Now, I'd still given no considerations to actually what 5 years service would be. For me, it was a way of being able to get my education paid for. And it wasn't until I joined the army, I signed all my paperwork. I went back and told my university that I would no longer be using my education. I went to the army, and the army looked at me and said, a qualification in psychiatry. Well, we don't need a psychiatrist because we know we're all mad. But if you're one of those carey sorts, why don't you go and learn medicine? We'll pay for you to go back to university for another year and qualify as a paramedic. And that's what I did. The army paid for my education. I qualified as a paramedic. I joined an infantry regiment as a paramedic with the intent of now having to do 6 years rather than 5 to pay for that extra education. Right. And within 5 or 6 months, I'd just fallen in love with everything that the army stood for. I loved the values. I loved the culture. I loved the work hard, play harder. I loved the camaraderie. And I thought very quickly, I'm going to make this a career for life. And before you know it, first Gulf, Bosnia, Kosovo, East Timor, Sierra Leone, all of the lovely places around the world that you don't see on a tourist brochure.
Right.
I've been and seen them all.
Yeah, you was getting your passport stamped up, right? With all those places, huh?
By all the places that no one ever told me to go to, you know?
Right.
I was voluntold on a regular basis.
That's nice. So you did what, 12, 13 years in service, right? And then you transitioned out, right?
Yeah, so 12 years service. My claims to fame is that from the day I finished qualifying and joined the regiment to the day that I was medically discharged 12 and a half years later, that there has never been a British service soldier serving anywhere on an operational tour in the world that I haven't spent some time at their side on that same conflict. So first Gulf, 3 tours of Bosnia, 2 tours of Kosovo, East Timor, Sierra Leone, Second Gulf War.
Wow, that is a huge resume, and I just want to say on behalf of all the listeners, all the veterans across the pond, thank you for your service and what you did for your country, and the partnership that because I told you I was stationed over in the UK as well. So, man, like I said, when I come over there, you know, we're gonna have to have a couple of pints together.
Amen.
But when you transition out, you know, and we're going to touch on this book right here. So yes. Everybody take a screenshot, right? But this is one of what? One of four, right? Or one of five? It's
My fifth one is due to be published at Christmas this year.
right. So we, like I said, he's gonna come back on. Jay is gonna come back on the scoop, and we're gonna talk about the others. But we're gonna talk about the battlefield to boardroom. So when you started to, yeah, sure, go ahead.
Let me just quickly share with you. If you can hold the cover up for one more second. I didn't. The photograph there, the person carrying the stretcher at the front with the sidearm, that's the last photograph of me in uniform. And I never knew at the time that photograph was taken. All of that was a staged photograph for the armed services to try and use as a promotional thing to invite other people to join the medical corps. And we posed with that photograph. There's nobody on the stretcher. It's just a load of rubbish that's put on the stretcher coming out the back of a Chinook helicopter. And we posted that photograph in the Gulf, probably about 16 or 17 different times whilst they took photographs to try and get the one that they were going to use. And 13 days later, I was being medevaced on a stretcher like that out the Gulf.
I tell you that the full circle, right? The full circle. It's thing, but
let's be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk about. So you have 10 ideal stuff, right? Strategy. We're gonna talk about the first thing. I call it mission clarity, right? The foundation, objectives, roles, and like what made you start to put this? Because this was your first book, right? In 2015, was this the first? Yeah. So what made you say, you know what? You spoke to yourself like, Jay, okay, you're transitioning out. I know you still wanted to serve. Like now your mind is probably, my mind was like, okay, how can I contribute to the world? I can no longer do something I love to do. I have to transition to something else. What made you sit down and start to put pen to paper and put this collection together right here?
Well, they always say there's a book in everyone, don't they? They always say that, if you look hard enough, we've all got a story to tell and this and the other. And there was a number of people that once they'd heard my military story and my transition and the likes, there were many people that said, oh, you should write a book. You should write a book. So there were lots of people that were sowing a seed. But I was busy transitioning and then getting on with my corporate life and my time in the boardroom. I hadn't got time to write a book. A book was something that you did when you were old. When all of it was done, you could sit and write your memoirs, and I'll get round to it one day. And then literally, I was delivering a seminar to about 25, 30 business owners in Sheffield, in South Yorkshire. I always do a long Q&A after the seminar and ask people, what are the burning questions that you've got to ask? And there was this one chap sat towards the back, and he kept putting his hand up and then putting his hand down and putting his hand up and and eventually I walked over to him and I said, look, you've clearly got a question. What's your question? He said, what's wrong with your eye? I went, what? He said, all the way throughout the seminar, you've been rubbing your eye. What's wrong with your eye? I said, well, I'm probably weird question to ask. I've just been delivering a seminar on growing a business and leadership skills. What the bloody hell are you talking about my eye for? I've probably got something in it. And he said, I hope you don't mind. He said, I'm an ophthalmologist. He says, I run an optician's surgery. He says, I'm very concerned about your eye. He says, would you mind if I have a quick look? And literally out of his jacket pocket, he pulls one of those little optician's torchy things. I'm being sat back in a chair and he's busy shining a torch in my eye. I said, what are you doing? He said, did you drive here today? I said, no, I came by train. He says, oh, good. He says, I'm going to write you a prescription. I want you to go straight to hospital. He says, you're going blind. And I went, what? And he said, you've got this condition.
Oh, wow.
I've seen it once or twice before. You need to get to hospital. You've probably got about 48 hours left before you go blind in one eye. And I realised that he wasn't, pulling an April Fool joke or anything. I realised he was serious. So I packed my stuff up and I got in a taxi and went to the hospital and gave them this note. And 4 hours later, I was having emergency eye surgery to fix a problem with my eye. But in doing so, and the reason why that's so relevant to the story, in doing so, when I had my laser surgery, they said the surgery will fix the problem, but during the recovery, you'll be blind in both eyes for about 5 or 6 weeks. your eyes will be so impacted by the surgery that they'll just switch off for a whilst they heal.
Wow.
And then when your sight comes back again, it'll all be safe and sorted. But in the meantime, you mustn't look at a computer. You can't watch TV. You mustn't go outside into sunlight. We've got to protect your eyes as much as you can. I want you to wear a pair of Stevie Wonders. You've got to be careful about this. And I was sat there and I was thinking, well, what do I do for 6 weeks? And do you know what? I picked one of these up. I managed to find out which app there was that's got a voice recorder. And the book that you're reading right now is me emptying my head into a voice recorder and then giving it to an audio typist and said, can you turn that into a book?
Wow. That's huge, Jay. And before we came on, we talked about, people don't know the story that an individual goes through, right? They only know the story that they see and what the individual shares with them. So when you was putting this book together, I can't even imagine. I have a buddy, Kiwi. He lost his eyesight during a motorcycle accident, and he's an Air Force wounded warrior like myself. And just to see him do the things that he's doing now is phenomenal. And now that I know that is what inspired you to put this book together, like, I'm going to pick up a voice recorder and just start talking and just recording myself and using your time wisely, right? That's what we talk about, right? You put that in your book, right? Use the time wisely. So, wow, man. So I wanna ask you, like, what is the one transferable skill from the Battlefield to Boardroom book that leaders overlook? Like, what's the one thing that they overlook? Because, like I said, it's 10 things we're gonna talk about, but automatically when you had that recorder and you just started to just kind of unleash everything that was in between your ears onto that thing. Like, what was that one thing? Like, you know what? I want to share, capture this moment because it's going to help somebody out in the future.
Amen. And the simple fact is that, I could have looked at my military career and the fact that it was cut short through my PTSD. I could look at my corporate career and the fact that I was losing my eyesight and I was at risk of losing a really good corporate job. I could have sat there in woe is me and pity and, this is terrible. Why is it happening to me? Or I could challenge myself and say, this is happening. What do I need to do about it in order to be able to make the most out of it? And the simple fact is, and the one thing that we get from time in service is shit happens. It happens all over the world, and it happens in the most unsightly and we have seen and witnessed and experienced things that no other human being should ever, ever, ever have to witness or be part of. And yet it's the fibre of what makes us who we are today. And we can either say, it happens, and this is woe is me, and it's why is it all on me? Or we can turn around and say, do you know what? Everything that I've been through has led me to where I am today. And today I get a choice of how I'm going to respond to that. And I choose to be able to get up and use all of those skills to be able to either share it with somebody else or to acknowledge the journey I've been on and where I'm at, or to be able to simply lean over and help another brother that's perhaps one step behind me.
Wow. And that falls right into your first segment of your book is clarity, right? Mission clarity, right? Objective role and process. Like could you emphasize in the book balance roles? Balance roles. Like everything is a balance, right? So what's the scoop on sharing on how can somebody start off with their clear objectives, right? Because you had a clear objective, like this is what I'm trying to say, this is what I want to put out in the atmosphere, right? Like you started off with your book by clear objectives. Can you kind of give us the scoop on that? Like what made you start off on that as being the first one to kind of launch the book into the direction that you took it?
It's fair to say that anyone that's been in service at some stage in their journey has been through FUBAR. We've got to a point and we've gone, how the hell did we get here? Something somewhere has gone terribly wrong, if I'm sat here and we're dealing with this. There's a foobar moment in every single soldier's arsenal. And the simple fact is, it's because we lost clarity on what we were trying to achieve. And we ended up in the tactics and the mud and the blood and the guts, as opposed to understanding what we're trying to achieve. I often say to people that when you're about to fly, you're sat in your seat in the aeroplane, the seat belts are already fastened, the air hostesses have already sat down, the engines are starting to roar, and you're pushing off down the runway. As the captain starts to take off and the nose lifts, you sit back in your seat, you look to the future, and there's a sense of excitement about where you're heading. And when you've got clarity on the future of where you're going, then you've got a load of enthusiasm to get there. And yet, when things are down, when things are a little bit going against you and you tend to lower your head, it's almost like when the captain said, fasten your seatbelts, we're going home, we're just coming in for the final descent. And as the nose drops and your shoulders drop and you look to the floor in front of you, the last thing that goes through your head is, I hope the captain's good and we don't crash. And you think about the immediacy of now, and you forget about the future. And clear objectives, balanced roles, clarity on where we're trying to head to is about being able to stop worrying about the thing that you're facing right now and understand that this too shall pass. Everything that we've been through, every single experience that we've ever had has led us to where we are today. And I can now say at 52 years old that I've got 52 years of experience of dealing with all of that and surviving it. And it's that that's in my arsenal that allows me to be able to embrace the next challenge and say, come on, bring it on. Is that the best that you've got for me?
I tell you so. Hey, so y'all get to school because this is one of the quotes I wrote down. Jay put in a book like, you can't execute chaos, but you can command it with clear intent.
Amen. You can either allow the universe to do what it does and get caught up in this vortex of chaos, or you can accept that in chaos, I'm in control of me. I remember when COVID first happened back at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, and the whole world went into mad panic mode. You know, my wife isn't from the UK originally. My wife is Bermudian by birth. And she's with me. We're in lockdown, or we're just going into lockdown on the 13th, 14th of March, 2019. And the whole country was in chaos. We didn't know what to do. The government were enforcing a lockdown. They were preventing people from being allowed to walk freely on the streets. There was a lot of panic. There was a lot of panic buying. I mean, I'm sure that you had the same.
Oh yeah, toilet paper, water, paper towels,
paper towels. You know, toilet roll,
toilet rolls. Yes.
How much toilet roll could one person possibly need? But there was this mad panic, and my wife said to me, I don't understand why you've not got caught up in this. Everybody else has got this real fear about it, and you seems to be really, really, really quite calm. It's almost unnerving as to how calm you are when everybody else is in chaos. And I said, it's all about perspective. We've got to understand that for everybody else, they've never witnessed or faced or experienced anything like this. Whereas when we've witnessed some of the most horrific things that could possibly ever happen and should never have happened in the first place, when we put that into context of what's happening right now, then all of a sudden, it's just another day in the park. You know, it's just another day in the trenches. It's put your berry on, point your rifle down the range and say, this too shall pass.
Yeah, and this too shall pass. You talked about that. It's huge because in your book you put you emphasize three key things. I call it the trio, right? The leadership, trust, and support. Why these are like, of course, you know, in your time in the military, it was great there, but then when you had to transition to the civilian sector, you took that with you and you put it in the book, right? So those the triad in your book. What's the scoop on that?
Bless you for recognizing that, because ironically, the majority of the time I spend in corporate now supporting and doing strategy at a high level with the C-suite is often around that particular chapter in this leadership. I was really fortunate that, having come from a university degree before I joined the army, I came into the army with a little bit of a worldly experience, perhaps, beyond the people that were in my platoon that were joining straight from school. I got 3 or 4 years on them. I'd seen just a little bit of life as it was before being enlisted and joining up. And one of the things that I recognized was good leadership versus terrible leadership. One of the things I
Right.
quickly recognized in the military, and it helped me immensely to be able to get promoted very quickly within my own ranks, is, let's use British military rank. I'm sure it's the equivalent, or you'll help me with the equivalent in the American ranks.
Sure.
But let's say I'm a corporal and I'm trying to get recognized and promoted to sergeant. There is no way that the army is going to stop by and allow the war to continue whilst I go through sergeant training. It's just not going to happen. The green mission
Right.
is on a mission, and you're either on the
Right.
bus or you're off the bus. So
Right.
the only
Right.
way that I can possibly even be considered as a sergeant is I've got to look at all of the sergeants that are already there and say, where's the weakest link? Where's the one that I could do a better job than they if I got the chance? And then my job is to befriend them and to help them to become the best that they can be. Understanding that you're being watched 24/7 and someone's seeing that mentorship role of you stepping up into somebody else's position. No pay, no expectation, no conditions of why I'm doing it. I'm doing it for the greater good of the team. But I'm doing it on the idea that one day, as he's moved on or moved out, that they'll have seen the right replacement. However, it's not as simple as that, because if I'm a really good corporal and the only way you're going to get considered for sergeant is if you're doing a good job, why would they ever give my role up to somebody else if somebody else is a bit poor? So the other job is to be able to identify a really good private soldier and say, I'm about to get promoted. Nobody knows this yet, but I'm about to get promoted because I'm going to make it happen. And the only way I can leave this role is if I leave it in good stead. So my other job is to be able to guide and support you to become as good as I am, or at least as good as the other corporals, because otherwise you're not never going to get promoted and I'm stuck in dead man's shoes.
And that's that's crazy, because when I was enlisted as well, and we had the same rank structure. So I always, when I was going up in the ranks, I always told myself, I'm training my replacement, right? Because like you said, I would not feel comfortable moving up if what I worked so hard for and built goes to crap later, right? So I'm going to train so I always tell myself, train replacements. And I see that that's a little conflict, in the once you cross over to the corporate side. This is what I've seen is some people are very hesitant in training the replacement, right? Because they like, well, now I'm not secure with my job, or I'm not there. But you put it, in your book of openness and conflict, right? Like, how would you deal with that openness and that conflict? What's some of the strategy or scoop that you could share with us on how, because in service, we're always trained to work as a team. Like, regardless, it doesn't matter, tall, short, skinny, fat, all the shades of the crayon box, it doesn't matter. We working as a team because we have to get a mission accomplished.
Amen. I guess, again, that transferable skill, because we understand what it takes to be a team, the live together, eat together, sleep together, breathe together, fight together, die together, because we understand team far more than any corporate entity will ever. Oh, we're one team. Yeah, until 5 o'clock on a Friday, or unless, unless
4:59 and 59 seconds. Yeah.
unless there's free Dunkin' Donuts on the way out, unless there's a bonus structure available, then it's all for one and one for all, isn't it? So to be able to help a civilian population understand the dynamics of true team is a really, really big challenge. And yet the easy way to be able to do it is to share Maxwell's idea of 5 levels of leadership. And the simple answer is that when we first promoted, the chances are that for a moment or two, we joke in the British Army that when you're first promoted, you might as well just stick it on with blue tack or with a post-it note.
Because it's coming on, right?
because it's
You're
not
gonna
there
mess
for
up,
long
yeah.
before they
Right.
realise that you're not ready to wear it. You've got to put it on and take it off a few times before you realise what it takes to be there. So the first level of leadership tends to be lead by domination. I'm now a corporal, you will do as you're told. That doesn't work. You know, it
Right,
might
right.
work once, but you've alienated all the people that are gonna have your back, are gonna watch your six. So you elevate into the second layer of leadership, or the second tier of leadership, where it's leadership through friendship and bond. And we lead from the front. We drive forward. We inspire people who are ready to be able to follow us and are taken on that journey. But that doesn't last long either, because once you've inspired people for a while, you can do it on platoon for a day or a patrol or maybe for a week or so. But you've got to keep elevating the level of motivation and inspiration and leading from the front even further and further and further, because otherwise they just get used to it. It's a short-termism. So
Right,
the third level of leadership, and ironically, this is where most middle management or lower C-suite or junior C-suite tend to get to and then stick at, is leadership through collaboration. And being able to inspire somebody else within the team, making a team leader or a section leader and inspiring them to motivate a team, but to step away and to be a little bit more reserved. And that's where most middle and senior management, and certainly junior C-suite, tends to get stuck in. Fourth tier of leadership is a lot more rare to be able to see. And it's almost about being able to go back and say, so how do I train for my replacement? What do I need to do CPD? How do I train and motivate and inspire? How do I find people to become better than I am, that I can help them on that journey? And that's fourth tier of leadership. And then the final tier, Maxwell only introduced this towards the end of his life, really. And it's so rare. We often see world leaders. You've got to be global CEO before you even start to see glimpses of this. It's called servant leadership. It's almost going back to the bottom. It's for me, the transition is, it's almost like being the quartermaster, and your job is to resource the next generation of leaders. Your job is to say, how can I be best of service to the next generation of leaders? What do you need from me? How can I make that possible and happen for you to become a better leader 10 years before I was, so you've got 10 years on me by the end of your career?
Wow, that's huge, because it all comes, like you said, it comes down to mutual cooperation, right? That's what you have in your book, right? Mutual that you want to cooperate mutually. Like we all have an end result. We all have that, servant leader, right? Treat others how they should be treated, and treat others how you want to be treated, right? Servant leadership, mutual. You want to cooperate, right? And it comes down to that individual development, because you have that in the book, right? Like how do you be a better person? How do you transition that battlefield to corporate? Like you have to learn how to develop yourself, or if you don't know how to learn, guess what? Everybody, look, and I still have I have it. You could grab this book right here, and I tell people, this is 2025. Where did you put this? Where was this book copyrighted? I don't even know if that's a word, but I'm going to use. I know it's like we're going on a decade now. But if you read it, and we talked about it earlier, like you went back to reread your collection, and he's like, wow, 10 years later, I can still use this. 10 years later, this stuff is still relevant.
That book sits on my desk, and I use it daily as a reminder, as a refresher of the things that have led me to I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for my military career. but it was about being able to understand how to be able to transition well from a military career and understand what were the transferable and what were the non-transferable skills. What are the things that I needed to leave in the barracks, and what are the things that I could take from the
Right.
barracks and turn into a multi-six-figure, post-military career.
And you definitely said so. I don't know if you remember that you put this in the book, but leaders don't eliminate conflict; they clarify through it.
We will all have a multitude of different ideas. If I went in and I just said, right, lads, sit down, shut up, listen in, this is how it is, then you end up with one perspective. You end up with one set of eyes and one ideology. Yet, if I could go into servant leadership and say, right, lads, once we've achieved the mission, we're all coming home. And this is the mission. How best will we address it? What can we all do today in order to ensure that we achieve that and we all come home safe? And ironically, I've now got 128 guys all thinking about how to be able to achieve it from 128 different perspectives. I'm a lot safer by giving up that command and control and empowering 128 other people to watch each other's back. And my job is to be able to, one, create the environment that is possible, and then two, manage that so they don't all go off half-cocked. And again, in Civvy Street, and corporate environment, the easiest way to be able to do so is not about command and control and bringing all of the authority from the top down. It's about creating the right culture within the business that every single person loves where they are and why they are. That if you're the janitor, you are the best damn janitor in the world who can do it.
Right.
You've got to take pride in whoever you are and do whatever you can do to be part of something that collectively we all get to come home.
Jay, I tell you the insights you're sharing, the inside scoop that you are there, and now we're talking 15 years, 10 to 15 years later, and I know that you have communication with C-suite, you have communication with other veterans. Like, what's one of the things that you share with them from the book or from your own, journey through life that you're like, hey, you have more than you realize. Like you are untapped. Your resources untapped. Like you have untapped knowledge. You have untapped skill set. You have untapped. Let me show you where it's at because it's inside of you. You just have to bring it out. What's the scoop on that? Like, how can you share to like, man, would you even imagine when you was going through the service and yes, you went through you got your degree and all that, but here we are years later, a published author, about to be 5-time published author, you keynote speaking, you coming on doing podcasts, you sharing your information. 10 years ago, did you even think that this was possible? Like I picture myself every day. I'm like, man, I can't. Kings, you still here? Like, you're still breathing? Like, this is huge. Could we talk about that battlefield? And people don't realize that for veterans and for humans, it's a battlefield between the two ears. It's a battlefield every day. Like, how do you fight that good fight? Like, how do you keep pushing forward? Like, what's one of the things that you want to share with us here about that real battlefield that we talked about earlier?
Sure. So thank you for your service. Like yourself, I was discharged with PTSD. I spent 2 years in a hospital sectioned for my own protection, 21 months in hospital. I went through a divorce in that time. I came out a different person to the man that my ex-wife had married. I went through that rock bottom, that dark period. I had my breakthrough. But I am now the person who I've always wanted to be and didn't really know how to be until I'd had my breakdown. However, to answer your question fully, 7-8 years later, I owned a business. I had 17 staff working for me. Majority of them, 14 of them, were all ex-service. I'd hired from vets, either people I knew or people that they knew, but we'd all served in some. It wasn't just Army; it was Navy and Air Force. I had 2 prison officers that I'd hired, but I took on guys who'd worn uniform because I understood the lingo and how to communicate and this and the other. And I was adamant that we were going to grow a big business. I wanted to be a big national business. And I've got high hopes for being able to take my small little entity and become a big UK business. And we were at 17 staff. I just signed a big contract, which meant that I got to salary 7 members of staff for 4 months before we got our first invoice paid by the big corporate entity. They put us on 120 days payment terms, and I got to find the cash to be able to keep these guys active for a while. And I chose to remortgage my house to put some cash back into the business to be able to keep it afloat. And 56 days into that 2-year contract, the corporate went bust. And I lost £250,000 in a phone call. They just said, "There won't. You were the last supplier on the list. You're going to be the last one that's going to get the ebbs of whatever's left. There's no money in the pot. You're out." I ended up having to make 7 good people redundant just before Christmas, because otherwise I'd have been bankrupt. Otherwise I'd have lost the business and everything. And I can say wholeheartedly, 17 years later, it was more difficult making 17 people redundant than it was fighting in the Gulf or learning to be able to come out of a breakdown. There was something about they had put their faith in me, and my choice to sign that contract and bankroll it the way I had let them down. And it was like leaving an injured guy on the battlefield. 17 years later, it's a scar I still wear really, really badly. And therefore, there are ebbs and flows in everyone's life. There are good parts and bad parts in every journey that we take. I've now made it my life's mission to eradicate unemployment in the UK. Now, when I first came up with that mission 6 years ago now, I got no idea how I was ever going to achieve that. I've come up with an impossible mission. At the moment in the UK, there's 2 million people unemployed. And I've come up with this idea that I've just laid 7 people off, that I'm going to find a way to employ 2 million people. But I set out with a mission because when I went to the Gulf and when I went to Bosnia and when I went to Kosovo as a junior soldier, I knew that there was a mission to try and achieve something. But with the little role that I had no idea how we were going to achieve it. And yet collectively, 15 years after we went to Bosnia, you could now argue it's a holiday destination. You could now argue that we've created peace and success. And so
That's true.
Not knowing at the time how you're going to achieve something, but having something so big and so powerful that it gets you up every morning and says, do you know what? I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to keep moving forward and I'm going to keep telling other people my story. And ironically, I've now got 18 other people that are so inspired by what we're trying to achieve that they're trying to achieve it with me. And collectively, we've created 8,000 jobs in the last 7 years.
Wow, congratulations, bravo. And that's part of the True North, right? Is that part of the True North movement? Yeah. So and we're gonna touch on the True North, when we transition out to how they could get in contact with you. But that is huge as not taking no for an answer, because I've experienced that. I was part of a a situation like you said. Like, I'm sure it was heartbreaking because those people put their energy, they put their life, they put into the company. But as a business owner, you had to make some tough choice decisions, to where now during that time, yeah, it was a low part, but now look at you helping thousands and thousands of people, right? It just had to be, how is that grit, your grit, your to get through that battlefield, to get through that low point, that low tide, and say, hey, don't worry, as the tide goes low, it's going to be high tide soon. And then I just want to be prepared to take, because your mission doesn't stop there, right? And I had to tell that to myself is you never know what somebody is experiencing or going through until you went through that situation. And guess what? You could like I already told you, Jay, like I've been through it, I was in the institution as well. And I said, oh, if that was ever to happen to me, I was gonna do this, and this. But when that happened to me, I didn't do none of those things. Like, it just, it was a different outcome. Cause I tell people, and I share this with myself, even earlier today, because I tell them I'm on my health journey. It's like, just do what you can when you can, while you can, and just
Amen.
make it to tomorrow.
Amen.
Make it to
Amen.
tomorrow.
Make it to
So
tomorrow.
make it to tomorrow, and that way I know because we're about to transition. But I wrote down some core things and things I want to just kind of do like a rapid fire because I know that it's getting a little bit late over there in the UK, and I want to touch on these things because this book right here. So I'm gonna put it up again so y'all can get it, and we're gonna talk about how else y'all can get it. But this is some of the things that's in the book. Clarity drives culture. Objectives is greater than being overwhelmed. You also put in there every role matters, and every role must be understood. You put in there conflict isn't dangerous, suppression is.
Amen.
You also put in there support is strategic, not just emotional. You noted in your book, Battlefield to Boardrooms, that leadership isn't top down, it's earned sideways.
Amen. I've got
Growth.
more respect for the guys that I served with than the people I served.
100%.
When you can form a brotherhood, when you can pick the phone up and say, and you've got the confidence and the ability to be able to say, I'm having a bad day. That when you've got a true friend, when they take the mickey out of you.
Right?
Because when you can rib somebody, when you can have a good jab in the ribs with somebody, when you can give somebody a clip to the jaw, maybe it's because you've earned that right by what you've been through together, and being able to pick up a phone and say, I'm not good today.
Right.
That's not weakness. Churchill said a man's greatest strength is to first acknowledge his own weakness. And my job is to be able to say, do you know what? Today I'm not feeling good. Who can I phone and what can I say to them so I can feel better? Knowing full well that every single day they say the same to themselves. Jay's in my phone, and if I'm not feeling good, I'll pick up the phone and Jay will be there. And that's what we get from the service. People that are willing to be able to be there for each other. And that's what we can bring to Civvy Street that they just don't understand. It's not a 9 to 5. You can take the army out. You can take the soldier out of the army. You'll never take the army out the soldier. We are veterans
100%.
for a reason.
Wow.
It's because we share something.
Wow.
We share something. We've shared the same uniform. We've shared the same shit. And we'll share the same glory, brother.
Man, I appreciate Jay. But wait, y'all, let me share some more of the scoop of what's inside the book because y'all think this is small? Yeah, look how small it is, but it's so powerful. It is so powerful. Let me share what else that's in there because I'm giving y'all the Reader's Digest version so y'all can go out there and get the copy and read it for yourself because it's gonna mean something different to you when your eyes see it and you read it. He also put in there, growth isn't personal, it's tactical. Leadership isn't about titles, it's about traction. Great teams don't just align, they invest in each other. Don't assign a role, honor it. This is all what Jay is saying inside his book, right? Conflict doesn't break a team. You know what does? Silence. He put that in the book, everybody. Okay? It's inside this book right here. And Jay, how can they get in touch with you? How can they reach out? How can they get a copy of your book? How can they look at the other 4 that's going to be out there to add to this collection? How can they connect with you?
I hang out on LinkedIn these days, so simply look me up on J. Allen, My True North UK. Alternatively, mytruenorth.biz is the website, and there's links on there. Ironically, in the top tab highlighted called the Quartermaster Stores of not just the book, but a whole host of video and audio resources that go with it to be able to support people.
I appreciate that. And just for the ones who don't know what quartermaster means, think of it as the PX, the virtual base exchange PX quartermaster. That's the UK verbiage. So I'm just gotta help y'all out because like I said, I was stationed over there. So just go there. It's the virtual bookstore. It is the virtual shop where you could go purchase stuff and get other information.
Yeah, our QM is your PX. Yes.
Yes. So once again, if you are transitioning, you don't have to drown in the sea. Grab that VET S.O.S lifeline. We're here to help. And we also if you like this, like it, subscribe, share with others. We're on all platforms. Okay. And definitely, I just want to shout out to you, Jay, for staying up with us, because it's very late over there, but we finally got to communicate with each other. And I know people listen like, man, Kings and Jay, they probably knew each other for years. I tell y'all, I just met Jay before we press record, okay? And now it's gonna be this forever linkage right here. So that's how you know when it's genuine, right? When somebody's spirit is genuine, when somebody's genuine, people could tell, people would know that this is not scripted, right? This is very unscripted. This is, just having a good communication, and what people is trying to do is, like I shared with you earlier, is so much information that comes, I call it controlled chaos, right? So where can people come to kind of just get their little portion, and whatever people do with the information, that's what they'll do, but they only know what they could pull from it and use for their internal journey, right? Because everybody, I see you, you see me, but you don't see the inside, only what I share, yes. Only what you share.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
So until next time, everybody, don't forget, come and sit on the stoop to get the scoop. And we're here with Jay. Until next time, everybody, peace.